Hey everybody, this week on American Land Seller, we have an exciting new episode for you. We have decided that every single final Friday, the last Friday of the month, we are going to have a final Friday episode full of interesting and fun things that maybe you didn't know. We're asking some of our friends and family to join us and talk about some of their expertise. And so this week we have three separate guests. We have Carrie joined by Roger Sears, our hunting expert. They're going to talk about how to choose hunting ground, what you're looking for when you're scouting recreational properties, also why to use a realtor. We're going to be joined by my father, Alan Rickertsen, who is a businessman, and he's now retired, but he talks to us just a little bit about what's important to have as far as important aspects of being your own boss and owning your own business. And finally, we have Jason Hansen from Midwest Family Financial. He's going to talk to us about how to keep your assets when you get them. So great episode this week. It's our first ever final Friday episode. As always, we hope that you learn something new and take something with you every single time. Hello, everyone. My name is Koby Rickertsen, and welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast. We are so excited you decided to join us today on our journey to discover new and interesting things about everything land, from sales, investments, ownership, regulations, and so much more. Our mission is to connect you to the top folks in the country where it has to do with land, so we can learn more about everything from agriculture to land development.
Okay, Koby and our special guests, let's get started. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to American Land Seller Podcast. And our guest today is Roger Sears. I am Carrie Rickertsen, and I stole this podcast from my husband today, so don't tell him. Roger, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Carrie. Thanks for having me back on again.
You're welcome. It's so good to have you. So what are you going to do this fine Friday?
You know, I'm just trying to kind of get some chores done around my place, get ready for spring turkey hunting, and kind of my usual, something that involves outdoors and hunting and fishing. So. That's
right. It's hunting season all the time for you, huh?
That is correct.
Well, that's some of the things I want to talk about today is hunting and, some of the things that you like to use and some of the things you like to talk about. First question for you, though. When you are looking for property to go hunting, you've always used a realtor. Why do you think that's best instead of kind of doing it on your own? Because you do have a lot of knowledge. But why do you think it's best?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got burnt buying a property about 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And I was buying half a section of ground in Perkins County, and it was a private sale. And of course, I thought I didn't need a real estate agent and blah, blah, blah. And what I ended up not being aware of is the inspections I could request. And so never got an inspection on the septic system. And it turns out the septic system was basically a 55-gallon barrel buried with a little PVC, and it basically collapsed shortly after I bought the ground. And that was like a $7,000 mistake that I, of course, wasn't ready for. So, it was kind of a hard lesson in trying to do things myself and save money. And so from there on, I've always been represented by an agent, mostly you and your husband.
Well, we sure appreciate that for sure. Yeah. So you like to go look at land whenever Koby has something pop up in this area. Well, pretty much all over the state. You're not scared to go to.
No.
What are some of the things that you are specifically looking for? Because I know you are mainly geared towards hunting, good hunting ground. What are some of the things that you look for? So I'm new at this. I'm just learning from Koby, and you actually. So if you're a deer hunter, how do you know what kind of ground to look for that's good for deer hunting? or birds or whatever you're looking for?
Specifically for deer, typically I enjoy hunting whitetails, and that involves accretion ground. And so, what I'm looking for is habitat and, deer population. Hopefully it's in a good area. They've got a food base, there's a food source, corn, surrounded by cornfields, et cetera. You can have habitat, but if you don't have the food source, you're not going to have big numbers, or vice versa. If you've got a food source and you don't have a habitat, a bedding place for them to bed, then you're not going to have big numbers either. So, I'm kind of looking for all the things it takes to host a good whitetail population when I'm looking at deer hunting and waterfowl, which is what we've been kind of working on lately. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for kind of the same thing. I'm always looking for like a warm water slough potential, because here in Nebraska, we tend to get froze out. I hunt the South Platte River mostly, and it's nothing uncommon in Nebraska to get froze out in December, and basically December and January, you're at the mercy of the weather. And so you're not getting to hunt.
Right.
So, I'm looking for places that hold big number of birds, looking, in the Sutherland Hershey area, looking up at Scotts Bluff Morrill, where a good friend of mine just purchased a property. And, so yeah, it's, I'm always left looking. I love to dream. So, yeah. And then I love to help Koby do my part in helping him sell some ground too. So.
Well, that's always nice for sure. Okay. So speaking of deer, when you do get a property, I'm assuming you use deer blinds or deer stands, or what's your favorite?
I've since I've gotten a little bit older and I'm not as agile, translated, I got fat and chubby. I like using ladder stands. They're just a lot safer. And so I use mostly ladder stands for archery hunting. I have a cousin that comes out rifle hunting. I personally don't rifle hunt, but I have family. Of course, I got grandkids coming up. They're going to start. And so we started buying just kind of whatever blind we could get a halfway decent deal on. And that kind of led me to I am now a dealer for Lazy Man blinds. And anyway, Donnie.
That sounds right up your alley, huh?
Yeah, that's what all the blinds are out in my house. But I just was researching a decent, affordable blind, and I stumbled on Lazy Man. And I'd encourage anybody that's looking for a deer hunting blind to look them up on their website, Lazy Man Blinds. And they're the best bang for the buck in the industry. And I've literally got almost every well-known blind there is. I've got Muddy, I've got Comfort 360s, I've got Rednecks, I've got the Amish wooden blinds. So I've got a vast variety of blinds, and typically most of these blinds I just mentioned are $3,000 to $4,000. But I can put you in a very nice Lazy Man for under $2,000. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, really good bang for the buck. So this last year I started in my quest to try and find something affordable. That's what led me to them. So I've been enjoying selling. I think I sold 13 blinds this last year, just on a real limited basis. So I'm kind of enjoying doing that.
Yeah, nice. So are these blinds, are they like for all kinds of hunting, or are these deer blinds, or these duck blinds only, or
no? These are all deer blinds. They're a fiberglass, a molded fiberglass blind. They're a 2-part blind. Anyway, they're you can have them on the ground. I have them on the ground that I use them for turkey hunting, or you can build a platform and elevate them. Most of the ones we have are elevated, but I do have a couple that I use for turkey hunting. I also have one mounted on a trailer that I use as a portable turkey blind or an antelope blind, and that works really well. And it's just simple. You just literally go park it wherever you want to hunt, and brush it in, camo it up a little bit, and you've got if it's raining out, you're dry. If it's snowing out, you're warm. You got to throw a heater in them. And so
I was just going to ask you that.
When you got an 8-year-old kid with you, you got to keep them warm and comfortable to give them a chance just so they're not miserable.
Right.
So
or when a hunter brings their non-willing wife who's going to be freezing cold me. So it's good to know that these
Carrie
blinds
hunting, I know that it would have to be about 80 degrees in the blind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So that's good to know for people that are not used to going hunting and they're dragged along anyway. They can be nice and toasty warm in there. So that's good.
That is correct. No, it's just definitely a good way to, and it's, you're there. And so it hides it. It also masks some of your scent, kind of holds some of your scent in, kind of holds some of the noise inside. So it's a really good tool for taking kids and beginning hunters, but it's a really good tool for any hunter. I mean, most turkeys are shot out of blinds anymore, at least around here. And, for rifle hunting and stuff, like I said, it's just, it's masking your movement. It's masking your scent. It's masking your noise. And so, these blinds are a really good tool for hunting.
Awesome. So you said you're a dealer for them. So if somebody was interested in purchasing one, what would be the best way to contact you to get more information or to
give
purchase
them a call.
one?
Give me a call on my cell phone, 308-530-3167, or my email is huntforfunnebraska@gmail.com. And that's all spelled out except the 4 is a number 4. So HUNT for fun Nebraska@gmail.com.
Okay. And then what is the website also for that?
Lazy Man Blinds is
LazyManBlinds.com.
Donnie Carmichael started building these. He built swimming pools by trade, and he just wanted an affordable blind, and so he started building them. He literally came out this year with a couple new models. They are a really, really nice blind and absolutely the best bang for the buck in the industry. So I'm happy to be a part of them selling them.
Awesome. Well, cool. I don't know, Roger. What do you think? I think maybe I could do a better job with this podcast stuff.
Well,
than,
you sure are a lot prettier than the normal host, though.
Oh, that's funny.
And I said, I just want to thank you guys for always supporting me. You guys have done a great job in representing me, and like usual, I stole a Remax pen every time I walk into this office.
Well, you steal as many as you want. They're great pens. Roger, I want to thank you for being on with us, and we'll have Koby be the judge as to who the better podcast host is.
You got my vote.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys
enjoy
for
the rest
having me
of
on again.
Absolutely. You enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Hey, and welcome back to the American Land Seller Podcast on our special Final Friday episode. We've had three different segments with three different folks that have some great information for us today. This segment, we have Alan Rickertsen. He is the longtime business owner. He's retired now, but he does do a podcast called The Barefoot Businessman. And so we have him on here to just kind of talk about small business, owning a small business successfully. He has done that himself. And you may have noticed that we have similar last names. Sometimes my brother and I call him Dad. So, but Dad, how are we doing today? You want to just give us a little bit of background on yourself? And like I said, we're just going to talk about owning a small business and doing it successfully today.
Well, Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
My wife and I got married about 52 years ago. We spent 20 years farming, spent 20 years in a trucking company, and in the last 10 years we've been ranchers. So we've had several businesses, and I tell people that I have never had a boss in my life except my wife. I've always been my own boss. So that's kind of my background.
All right. And so you started out kind of in the farming business, and then that kind of translated into later on in the trucking business for quite a few years. Talk to us just a little bit about, like, as a business owner, what are the things that really are what we need to focus on to be successful in business?
Right, well, one of the things, talking about my farming business, I was in a partnership with my dad and my brother.
Sure.
And so one of the things that I'm pretty heavy on now is if you're going to have your own business, don't be, I call it unequally yoked. And that's a term from the Bible, and I'm not going to talk about the Bible, but unequally yoked is, I do not recommend you going into business with your best friend. I don't need anybody besides yourself. There has to be a majority owner to a business. Now, I believe you can be in business with your wife, because it's my belief that if a husband and wife don't agree on whatever it is you're thinking about doing, it's not going to work anyway, so that'll take care of itself.
Sure.
But you go into business with your best friend, you go into business with your uncle, with your cousin, and if you're 50-50, it's not going to work. You've got to have somebody in charge. And my brother and my dad and I farmed for 20 years. We got to be some of the largest farmers in the state of Nebraska in 1984. We farmed 16,000 acres from Bassett to Hayes Center and from Paxton to Cozad. And it got to the point where we just got to be a body with three heads, and nobody could make a decision, and we just kind of got to walking around in a circle, stomping on everything we'd made because nobody decided where we was going next.
Sure.
So unequally yoked is something you need to think about if you're going into a business.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I know some of the experience that I've had, even with being in the military and everything else, it really helps to have someone that's really given the directions and everything. So, yeah. So, we kind of talked about before we came on here, just like some of the business basics to be successful. And I thought it was interesting that when you said you were talking about this is for small businesses, is kind of what we're talking about today. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that that's anything under $1 million a month is a small business. How is it that we can what kind of tools do we need to make our business successful? What's one of the first things that you would say is something we have to have?
Well, there's several things you have to have. First of all, I recommend anybody, whether you're in business or not, have a will and have life insurance. And if you don't have that, you're probably going to fail at whatever else you do. But you need a bank, you need an attorney, and you need an accountant. Excuse me. And one thing people need to figure out, a lot of people don't think about this, your banker is not your friend. He is a business associate. And your relationship with your banker is only going to go as far as your ability to repay a loan.
Right.
And if your banker can be your best friend, but once he decides or his bank decides that your ability to repay has gone downhill, they're no longer your friend. And you want to keep that in mind. Don't think of them as friends. Excuse me. You want to think about them as business partners. I also recommend that if you're in business, you do not have your personal money in the same bank as you have your business. And simply because if things go downhill with a bank, they're going to keep every account you got there until you sue them to get it back, even if it's in a different account, because that's the way they do things. They're going to hold on to your money. And the old farmer told me years ago, you're way better off to have the money and let them sue you to get it than you are to have them have the money and you have to sue them to get it. It just looks worse in the newspaper.
That's fair.
Another thing you need is an attorney. Another thing that you don't think about when you're looking for attorneys is first of all, attorneys and accountants, the first half hour is free. So you can go shop for an attorney and accountant. And you call them up and you ask them. And if the first half hour isn't free, they're not worth the trouble to go talk to. All right? You go talk to them, and you need to have a list or items that you want them. They work for you. Okay? The banker is a business partner type deal. An attorney is like an employee, and an accountant is like an employee. So you need to be able to tell them, like, as far as I'm concerned, right now, in this economy we have now, taxes, saving on taxes is the best way you can make money. Because if you save $1 on your taxes, that's 100% profit. If you put money in the bank and they give you a 2% return on it, that's a 2% profit.
Sure.
So you want to tell your accountant what you want. He can tell you whether he can do that or not. So I tell my accountant, I want to pay the least amount of taxes legally possible.
Sure.
If I ask him to do something and he says it's not legal, then we don't need to do that. Right. But I don't want to pay any more in taxes than I absolutely have to. The attorney is the same way. I need to be able to tell my attorney what I'm going to expect from him. Like, I might tell my attorney, if somebody ever sues me, I want you to be the meanest person on the planet that day. I don't want you taking any prisoners, all right? Or whatever it is you want. If you just want an attorney that reads your contracts and writes your contracts, then tell them that. It's whatever you think you need, but you need an attorney, and I suggest in a small business, you have one close to home. When I was in business, in the trucking business, my accountant was 3 doors down in one direction, and my attorney was just through the alley across the block on the other side. So within a block, I could find my attorney and my accountant.
Sure. No, that's smart advice. I know that what you're saying, like, I know a lot of people right now, I just went through the renewal process with my lender. You kind of get a different vibe of where people feel like the world's going right now. So, but I can attest to the fact that my attorney is my business partner. He asks me smart questions. He holds me accountable to what my plans are. So, I mean, I feel like that's a good partnership. But I think, like you've always told us too, is there's nothing that says every couple of years you don't put all your stuff in print all your financials out and go shop around to see if there's something better going on. And another thing I remember you saying is it's not a bad idea to have one or two banks that you're working with too. So, maybe expound a little bit on that. Historically, it's one of those things that may seem like a pain, but kind of keeps you honest, I think, right? If you go take your financials to other lenders and they say, oh, you're doing good or you're not or whatever, and something like that.
Well, yeah, I recommend everybody have more than one bank. And if you're like in a real estate business like you are, I would definitely have my escrow account in a different bank than I have my loans with. Because you darn sure don't want a bank tying up your escrow account if you're already having bank trouble to start with, and then they got your escrow account under their thumb too. So again, the bank is not your friend, they're a business partner.
Right.
But one thing with a bank, the better books you keep and the better you understand your business and you can explain it to them, the better they're going to be. So it's up to you with the bank. The banker is not to tell you how to run your business. The banker is to tell you whether he's going to loan you money on what you tell him or not.
Right.
His job is yes or no. His job is not reason why.
Right. Yep. Nope. Absolutely. And that's the same thing, with an accountant and all the, the business partners that you talked about today, all of them are are there to help you. And if you're just meeting with these people once a year, you're already, I think, in trouble. Wouldn't you agree with that? You need to be like at least once a quarter meeting with your accountant to kind of see how things are going for you.
Yes, you need to just talk to your lawyer when you need a lawyer. But accountant, you need to be figuring out the end of the year. By October, you need to be talking to your accountant about the end of the year, because moving money is how you get to the end of the year for tax reasons. You know, you can, depending on your business, like farmers, you can buy $25 million worth of fertilizer on the 31st of December and have it in last year's business, or you can buy it on the 2nd of January and it's in next year's business. You can flip $25 million just by what date you put at the top of the check.
Right. Yeah, and that's like you can get into a habit. Like I know when I was even as small as Ben and I were when we were farming, you know, you can get into a situation where you've got too much in one year and not enough in the other if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So
you got to pay attention. You're the only one going to pay attention to your business. Nobody else is.
That's absolutely true. Well, Alan, I appreciate you coming on today, sharing some wisdom with us. You know, it wasn't as painful as maybe you thought it was going to be, was it?
No, it wasn't too bad.
Maybe we can talk you into coming back and expounding on some more business knowledge. Again, you have a it's not really a podcast, it's a YouTube channel called the Barefoot Businessman, where he does give some advice out. I think it's, you know, he does spend the majority of time sunbathing and hanging out in the beach and stuff, you know, now that he's retired. But he does spend a little bit of time doing those podcasts once in a while. So thank you so much for being on today. And we will be back in a minute with another segment of The American Land Seller. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to the American Land Seller. It's the final Friday episode for February. Doing something just a little bit different. We instead of talking about land today, we're talking about all kinds of other cool stuff like hunting, owning a business, and right now we're getting ready to talk about some financial and how to take care of your assets. So I'm joined now by Jason Hansen with a Midwest Family Financial. Jason is kind of become an expert in our area, at least on how to protect your wealth, as well as your health, I think. Jason, correct? So if you want to just introduce yourself, brother, that'd be great. Introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to.
Thanks, Koby. Yeah, my name's Jason Hansen, and my company is called Midwest Family Financial. It's actually my wife and I's company. I better put a plug in for her, or I will get spanked, even though I did really good on Valentine's Day. But
nice.
Midwest Family Financial, my wife and I founded it about 8 years ago, and we are in the business of helping people protect their money. You know, everybody has these great ideas about how they are going to grow this gigantic pile of money, but nobody ever teaches them how to protect it. So that's kind of the focus that we take on.
Awesome. You know, Jason, there's several different facets when you talk about protecting people's wealth, protecting their investment. Talk just a little bit about that, because I know like one side of what you guys do is insurance, like health, like life insurance, but you can also use that also for if you get into a little bit of trouble with health and stuff too, correct?
Yeah, there's we call it the smartphones of life insurance, where it actually gives you access to the death benefit if you encounter a terminal, critical, or chronic illness. I'll throw out some stats real quick. 48% of all small business failures 50% of foreclosures and 62% of bankruptcies can all be traced back to some sort of medical event in somebody's life, whether it's an illness or an injury. And the biggest pushback I get is, did any of those people have health insurance? 85% of the people in that survey had health insurance. Health insurance pays for doctors, hospitals, medications. It doesn't pay the house payment, the car payment, the co-payment, the deductibles, all of the other things that go along with living. So it's very important to protect those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there was a point in my life where, we didn't have health insurance because felt like we couldn't afford it when we were trying to get our business launched and stuff. And my whole attitude during that whole time was, if something, God forbid, happens, I'll just file for bankruptcy. And I think that's the way a lot of people feel, especially owning your own business. I mean, I don't know what the people that you talk to, Jason, maybe that's not right, but it seems kind of like my partner, like my buddies in business, that's kind of how they feel.
It's sometimes we do come across that, but the good news is you don't have to. There's
Sure.
ways to protect your assets without having to do that.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about your program, Jason. I know you've got, like I said, there's lots of moving parts to you and Lori's business, but specifically, if I was going to have a 5-minute conversation with you or whatever, what's the most important parts of your business that a guy needs to know about?
Well, first of all, we work with other professionals. We don't keep everything to ourselves. We work with other professionals like yourself on the real estate side of things. We work with mortgage professionals. We work with health insurance professionals. We work with P&C, property and casualty agents that can help people save money there. So we're in the business of helping people save money that they're already spending anyway, and then again protecting that money through living benefits. If you've ever seen a GoFundMe for somebody, you know that it financially devastates people when they wind up in this position. And I've experienced that, and that's kind of my why. I think we all have to have our why as to why we do what we do. And my why is I've already experienced it, and I don't ever want to see anybody else go through that again. It was horrific.
Yeah, that is one thing. You and I have had those conversations before, where you've kind of, I had not thought about that until you brought up the, like everybody's kind of reliant on the good nature of, when you get into trouble, that's the first thing people do is they throw a GoFundMe up. And in the interesting world that we live in, we've kind of seen that GoFundMe has a way in nowadays of what they allow on there, and then again, they take a pretty good substantial portion of that. I learned when I did a GoFundMe for a friend of mine who ended up with cancer. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Expound on that a little bit though. How is your program there for me and my family when something catastrophic happens? Like either I have something like a sickness or something really bad goes wrong for us. Sure.
Again, it's just, sometimes I'll ask people, do you have life insurance? And they say, yes. I say, do you have the old kind or the new kind? If I get the deer in the headlights look, I know they have the old kind. And so it's just like life insurance. It's the same cost as your death-only life insurance, as we call it. But again, if you experience a critical illness, cancer, stroke, and heart attack, those are the big three. We all know somebody that's had one of those events happen in their life.
Sure.
Cancer, stroke, heart attack, blindness, coma, organ transplant, severe burns, loss of limb, cognitive impairment. All those types of things fall under that critical illness benefit. And then the terminal benefit, of course, doctor says I have 24 months or less to live. I can access up to 90% of my death benefit. On the critical side, you can access up to 75% of the death benefit. And then the chronic benefit, we think about long-term care. 50% of us are going to wind up in a facility somewhere before we pass away. So if Lori was here, you would agree she's smarter, she's younger, she's healthier, she's better looking than I am. So
Yeah.
it's probably going to be me. Oh, you do agree, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
So we're just saying
Still frustrated we couldn't book her today, but whatever. Go on.
next time, right? Yeah. She's prettier than I am. Anyway, we think about the need for long-term care. Who pays for that? Lori and I might have this little bit of money saved up for our later years, and if I wind up in a facility, she's going to have to write a check every month for somebody to take care of me. And that chronic benefit actually gives us access to 2% of the death benefit. Now, it's not very exciting until I say it's 2% per month. So on $1 million policy, that's $20,000 a month. So the average facility depends on who you talk to. Maybe $8,000 to $15,000 a month, depending on where I'm at, what kind of care I need. So that's kind of how it breaks down as far as the way it pays out. And it's the companies we work with are one of the companies we work with is 175 years old, and they've been keeping their promises for that long. So we work with extremely strong companies that back these things.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I mean, when you have to go to a facility, I think I think our generation is one that I'm ready to move in as soon as I turn 55. They feed you through 2-3 times a day. You get ice cream. I mean, to me, it's awesome. But there's a lot of folks, though, that kind of waited until the last minute. And I see an awful lot of farms, ranches, big properties that are liquidated because of the fact that we didn't think about this, and grandma owns all the ground, and grandkids or, son or whatever's been farming it forever. And now grandma's got to go into the home. Well, the rules say if you haven't sold it within 5 years, or whatever, or done the transfers or whatever you need to do, if it's not already in the kids' as their grandkids' name, and within 5 years of grandma having to go to the rest home or whatever, guess what? They have to liquidate all of that property to help pay for grandma. And a lot of these folks have been living in these rest homes and these assisted living places for a long time. And they could liquidate an entire farm off of doing that because of how expensive they are. So,
well, the average in a home is 18 to 24 months before somebody passes away, and yeah, you can rack up a gigantic bill during that amount of time. And I'm glad you brought that up, Koby, because we work with a lot of farmers and ranchers where, the parents want to pass the land and the ranch on to the kids, and if it's not structured properly, and mom and dad pass away, when the second one of those two passes away, the IRS knocks on the door and says, "Hey, we need our tax." And the kids, in our case, it's structured to where the kids say, "Hold on just a minute." They shut the door in the IRS's face, and they go in, they write them a check, and they say, "Here you go." So that's I work with a CPA that believes strongly in what we do, and we work with his clients to get those farms and ranches protected so that they can pass on, without the kids having to sell one of those pieces of ground so they can pay to keep the property. It's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and then during this episode, we had my dad on who does a podcast. I don't know if you know this or not, but he has a podcast called the Barefoot Businessman. And one of the first things he said was, if you don't have a will or life insurance, then you're not going to make it in business. If you aren't smart enough to get those two things in place, then you're probably going to struggle, And so, and I like the bendiness, the flexibility of what you guys have put together and have offered. Jason, we're going to wrap it up, but can you just let us know, how can folks, if they're interested in what you got going on, how can they get a hold of you? And you can also, I know there's people outside of Nebraska that listen to this. Can they contact you, and you can maybe put them in touch with somebody in their area? Maybe if they're wanting to reach out and get some more information.
I actually work in several different states. I'm licensed in several states. I won't rattle them all off here, but My fund, I can be reached directly at 308-520-8459, and I'm happy to have a conversation if somebody has some questions. I don't know, can I put a QR? I probably can't put a QR code up in there, but maybe we can.
Yeah, no, not that high tech yet, Jason. But what's your website? You got a website?
www.livingbenefitsexperts.com/Midwest Family Financial.
Okay, so that's livingbenefitsexperts.com/Midwest Family Financial. And that's, you can get a hold of Jason. I would recommend Lori, but,
Oh, man.
you know, but anyway, but appreciate you being on here today, brother.
Appreciate you.
Great. Yeah, great info. And for everybody else, we will see you all down the road. You have been listening to the American Land Seller Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our program, and we promise to continue to try and find new, exciting, and informative things to discuss every single time. If you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, or follow whatever works on the app you're listening or watching on. We would love for you to keep track of what we're up to. Thanks again, and until next time, God bless you. Have a great week. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com.